Welcome to the last session of the ChemAxon user group meeting. We'll start off with a presentation from Steven Muskal. Steven's the CEO of Eidogen Certainty. He's more than 20 years experience in the biopharmaceutical industry. He obtained his PhD from Berkeley, and he's worked for a variety of companies, including MDR in the past, and Anafimax and Libraria before founding Certainty. Steve will give us a short presentation, a nifty presentation on a nifty tool on a nifty device. And Steve.
Thank you. You can hear me in the back? Very good. Thank you for the intro, and thank you actually all of ChemAxon, in particular Alex, and well, the Alexes in general, Nora. I probably one of the longest distance travelers. I came from California, over volcano ash and British airstrikes. And they lost my luggage, so it's been 2 days of long, cold nights. That's right. I actually had to buy this yesterday, but thank you. I'm going to give a whole presentation actually on the iPad. So this is the little device here. You may have seen it in the news. I know there are not too many in the country, not too many in Europe. In fact, I think that's why my luggage got lost, because I had an extra one in my luggage. I think someone stole my luggage. So the whole presentation's on this. I'm going to give a demonstration, actually as a video as well on this. So I'll just jump right to it. Thought I'd lead with a little cartoon joke. If you can read that in the back. There's clearly been a huge amount of press with the iPad, and Apple is an incredible marketing force. I'm quite envious of this company. We all have a lot to learn from, I think, this company. I'm not sure everyone in the room knows. I was talking to Wendy, about this. Yeah, Apple is the #2 market cap company in the S&P now, just shortly behind Exxon. They surpassed Microsoft. And that's just stunning. I mean, because we think about Apple, there are a couple, Macs in the room, but what do you think of it? It's been sort of a hobbyist computer. It's far more than that. It's pervasive. The iPad indeed has been kind of in the news, but it's a device I don't think we should dismiss. I think it's one that actually will help pave the way for other pad-type devices. The mobile computing environment's going to, I think, radically change for the better. So in terms of the demonstration agenda, I'm going to actually work backwards. I'm going to actually lead with a demo. Contrary to the 20 years of training I've always had where you save it for the end, I thought I'd just jump right into it in the beginning. And then I'll give a little bit of background, and then show some of the infrastructure and how we did what we did. And that includes looking under the hood a bit. And then this is, of course, an application that's available in the App Store, so I thought I'd show you that. In terms of the demonstration, I'll just let it cook, so to speak. This is actually an iPad simulator, but it's exactly what you see on the device. When you launch the application, you see a little welcome screen. But I'm going to start with a keyword search. Here I'm just typing anti-inflammatory in this case. This is actually searching a kinase database. So most people think of oncology applications, but as many know, there are many more applications for kinases than just the cancer arena. This is just actually showing, very small font in the back, but this is just showing that links out to PubMed and that type of thing. The real fun stuff is starting to come right now. These are actually card files of chemical structures, structure activity data, prettier view when you click on the button here, SAR view. This actually is a report. You can click a button and have it emailed to you. So that's pretty cool. It's one of the first chemical drawing applications on the iPad. So here, actually, this is not using Marvin, unfortunately. I'm looking forward to the JavaScript version that can run in Safari. But this is actually using a JavaScript-based drawing package called ChemAxon. But you can see this is actually effectively drawing and piecing apart chemical structures with your finger. And it issued a chemical structure search. A lot happened behind the scenes, but that was a substructure search. So it's the world's first chemical drawn substructure search application on the iPad. Jumping to other aspects here, I'm going to show you can do simple target-based searches. This was just a quick key sequence FAK, for example, is one of the targets that was identified. There's some science behind this demo as well, but just for the sake of zipping through it, there's the ability to issue similarity searches. In this case, a reasonable range of similarity search, so you don't get too many hits, of course. You can do substructure, of course, and then super similarity type searches. And I think there are a couple extra searches here that will illustrate that. Dancing around the kinome is basically what's taking place here. Searching either keywords or chemical structures, surveying the kinome. The database that it's actually hitting is one I'll spend a little time to go into in detail. But you can see that just through simple touch interface, you're getting to different aspects of the kinome. I think there's one other aspect of the demo that we'll show right after this last target data here, and that's to actually get to more visual things. We've introduced something called search by tap. We have pre-processed ring systems that you can cycle through, and by clicking a ring system, it'll issue a substructure search that contain and identify structures that contain those predefined, pre-drawn ring systems. The nice thing about that is that's server side, and we can increase those ring systems, at will. And then finally, the true graphical kinome tree. There's actually touch interface here, so if you touch on major families, and I think we're going to touch down here, that actually issues a search over different segments of the kinome. There you have it, the world's first mobile-based, structure-based database search application on the iPad. Okay, so let's jump to the next slide here just to give you a little more detail on the background. And by the way, afterwards I can do some interactive demos if you'd like. It's real. The kinases, for those who follow the field, it's a hot area. There are hundreds of kinases that people have been targeting. There's hundreds of compounds in different stages of the pipeline. One of the key aspects I wanted to emphasize here is that there are many compounds that are not just hitting one kinase, they're in fact targeting intentionally multiple kinases. So people are really having to better understand the full kinome as opposed to just one individual kinase nowadays. Historically, people have gone for one kinase, trying to be highly selective. I think the trend's been going towards more of a consortium of kinases. So I just wanted to mention that little science aspect to it. The bit of the database, just a single slide here. The Kinase Knowledgebase is one of our products. It's about 500,000 or so structure activity data points. So those database behind the scenes that we were searching in that demo, it was reasonably large, and those were real-time searches. It's pretty fast. And in fact, we're using ChemAxon structure search, so that's why it was so fast. The database actually has over 6,000 journal and article content items, if you will, behind the scenes. So that's what is curated to build about 500,000 data points. We release this database quarterly, and it's about anywhere between 20 and 25,000 data points that are added to it. The key point I want to emphasize here, though, is we mirror those kinase targets that are clinically interesting. So this was a nice paper by Vieth at Lilly that showed the hot spots in the kinome. And the right-hand side is the Kinase Knowledgebase. So you can see we nicely mirror that. Now, it's really interesting. When our first application that we developed was the iPhone app called iKinase. We actually gave it away about 4 or 5 months ago. We actually sell it now. And to my surprise, I think it was like 4,000 or 5,000 people downloaded this. It was 2 to 3 an hour. It was an incredible number of downloads. And this was over the holidays. There were people downloading before I even knew it was in the Apple Store, because there's an approval process that I can go into offline if you're interested. But nevertheless, a lot of people are doing kinase work, and a lot of people are searching their iPhones for the word kinase. It's kind of strange. But with that sort of population, I said, okay, let's put some more energy in doing a more sophisticated app, and that's why we have this one on the iPad. But we're starting to get trends of the kinds of targets that people who are searching the free version were interested in. So I think we can actually significantly supplement the hot targets based on those targets people are most interested in, given the searches. So it's just a point of note. That's the beauty of when you have so many people hitting a database. Okay, so infrastructure. there was a lot going on behind the scenes there. And it's pretty cool and complex, but I thought I'd run through some of the things of what's going on. The actual iPad itself obviously involves, and it requires an internet connection. We actually built the application before the device was available even in the States, and so we needed a simulator, and the Wi-Fi only version was available, and then 3G came out. So we actually support, of course, both. There's actually two major servers involved in this application. There's a database server that's run on this little picture of a lady here. You might see the commercials, GoDaddy. You know, that's GoDaddy server environment. We actually have a mirrored system on HostGator. As a side note, I'm not sure you're following the trends here, but what's incredible with companies like this is you can get a fully configured or fully ready to configure web hosting environment with unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth for $5 a month at a company called HostGator. It's just mind-blowing. That's the brilliance of this whole .com era, where so many different companies required outsourcing, which is what's going to bring me to the Amazon world. So many industries working and requiring those outsourced computers that it's brought the prices down tremendously low. So, of course, we went to host the main database site on servers in those environments, and we just use a simple LAMP environment, the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. And those actually come with those real inexpensive versions of the database server. But we need a little more horsepower to run, of course, the structure search side. The chemical structure searching engine, we jumped right into the web service, the SOAP-based stuff that ChemAxon offers. And initially we started running on a virtual machine, running in the GoDaddy environment, but those configurations memories were too low. And we were getting this intermittent behavior that couldn't be reproduced within ChemAxon. So right away we said, look, we're not going to buy servers for this because we weren't sure if people were going to be interested in this application in the first place. Thought, well, what should we do in terms of prototype servers that have high capacity that could scale? Lo and behold, the cloud. Just by show of hands, how many people have had experience or worked in the cloud, in Amazon or any other cloud computing environment? Yeah, I was sort of expecting more, but I'm expecting a huge number of people to be moving to the cloud. Amazon is making this a big part of their business model, and so are other companies. But it really opened the door for us to explore this application. And frankly, we go into the details of what's behind the scenes there. This server environment is incredibly inexpensive and one that's highly scalable. And we run, of course, the LAMP environment and then JChem Web Services on that environment. And I mentioned chemine. The RICE is just a joke for those fellow athletes. It stands for rest, ice, and compression and elevation. These are bleeding edge technologies, and when you jump into bleeding edge technologies, you tend to get hurt and injured, so you need to rest a little bit once in a while. Okay, so the iPad, talked about a little bit. It's, I believe, truly revolutionary in the sense that it's going to create a momentum that's going to bring a lot of people into this computing game. So you might not be a Mac house today. I know of many pharma who are actually bringing in pilot devices and experimenting with them. It's a very light device, instant on, many apps, pretty easy to develop in. But I'll go into that in a minute. When I say pretty easy, I don't expect you in the back to see this. Unfortunately, iPad, iPhone app development, you have to work within Object-C. I'd rather have a root canal, in some cases, but it's actually a nice environment that you can code in and test and actually submit apps to the store with. I mean, so it's closed, and that's one of the problems. It's somewhat closed. So there's a steep learning curve, but once you get there, it's not so bad. So I'm the CEO. I jump into some of these bleeding edge stuff, but I actually did a lot of the coding on this application. And so, hey, if I can do it, I think anyone can. Downside, of course, is it's proprietary. The application environment is one thing. When I say proprietary, I mean Apple has its own idiosyncrasies associated with it. If you want to get an application into their store, you have to go through their approval process. So it slows things up, but at least it puts some level of quality and stability into the application. So let's talk about the cloud. Amazon's banking a lot on this. I saw last month in Business Week again a little clip on this that Amazon's expecting to one day surpass its retail business with the cloud business. I think it's a small number. They're talking about hundreds of thousands of users at this point. Their billions of dollars of revenue from their other businesses are far greater than the revenue they're driving with the cloud. But their vision is actually to be the data center for the world. So I might be a little bold, but I think it's, again, like the iPad, it's going to pull other players into the market. It makes a lot of sense to go cloud. Why? You can activate a Linux instance, you can activate a Windows instance, you can really activate new servers within literally seconds. This is a simple web snapshot of the interface that you go to in Amazon's, the EC2 environment. If you want to launch a new computer instance, you click that button, Launch Instance. And you're given a choice of some predefined, what are called AMIs, Amazon Machine Instances. They're sort of pre-configured virtual machines. Or you can use your own, or you can actually scan the server that you have and create your own. There's some cool things you can do there. But literally, you can click a button and boom, you have a server ready to go. And you can access this anywhere in the world. And oh, by the way, if you want to freeze a server and put up a new one and switch it over, you can do that too. So, I mean, it's an IT person's dream in many respects. It might be their nightmare if they're concerned about other things. But nevertheless, it is amazing to requisition hardware very quickly at very low cost. So when I say that, I'm sorry, the font's a little small in the back. But to give you an idea, the instance that we're using to run the application is a small instance, and they have small, medium, large, huge, massive. Right now, it's 3 cents per hour to run this, and you think, oh, that could run up to be a lot of money. It comes down to about $1 a day to run that server. Now, that's if you pre-reserve, if you will, an instance, and you spend a couple $100 to do that. If you decide to just launch an instance and run with it and not reserve it, you pay a little bit more. I think you pay like 8 cents an hour. This is an example of me showing experimenting for 8 hours or so. And right away you say, oh, I better reserve an instance. And you get down to 3 cents an hour. But basically, even if you count the $200 or so to reserve an instance, it's less than $500, around $500 a year to run the server continuously, 24/7, 365. I mean, you can't rent or lease a server of that capacity. People ask about security and all that. You have these really fairly complex dual key pairs so that you can only be SSH'd in, no one else can get in there. I mean, security is addressed. They have VPN as well if you want to get into that. But the reality is I made a statement for the company that I'm not buying any new hardware, server hardware. I'm absolutely going to do everything in the cloud from now on. And of course, the mobile computing doesn't count because we, of course, had to buy those. But look, over New Year's, I let the IT guys go on vacation, and one of our key click arrays, I don't know if you know what this is, it's a device that accelerates HTTPS requests and other things. It went out, and our main access to our online databases just went out on the 31st or so of December. No one was around. I had the CEO, I had to go into the server room and, oh no, I got to buy a new device. Well, it turned out they don't make that device anymore. And in order to get support, it would have cost me about $15,000 for a device I think I spent like $2,000, $3,000 for. I wound up going to eBay and getting a new power supply and all that. And I said, why am I doing this? It makes no sense. Why do IT people spend time on tweaking things? It's so cost-effective to do it outside. The cloud is the way to go. So, I mean, I had a real reason for doing it for the ChemAxon app, but clearly as we scale, we are absolutely pushing more and more in the cloud. So a bit about the app. Again, a little GoDaddy pictures and the Amazon picture there. This was the interface you saw. on the keyword search. It actually it goes to actually the GoDaddy app server. When one does a substructure search or similarity or any kind of structural-based search, it goes off to that Amazon cloud. So I have server-to-server communication, and then comes back down to the iPad. So there are dual servers to the iPad, and that demo I was showing you was all real time. It wasn't cut out or edited. So searching a 500,000 compound database it was spot on really quick. So server-to-server communication works really well there. Same with this particular workflow where you take a structure out of the database, manually edit it, issue the search with the search button, get a grid display, and delve back into data. It's basically going server to server to server. Last, very small from the back, I'm sorry, I just wanted to, for those who are interested at the code level, the forum is great in ChemAxon's doc set, and there's some really sharp people here who have really given some insight in how to use some of the SOAP technology they developed. But you might refer back to the slide in your set, because if you ever have to do this kind of thing, it's all in one place. It's kind of cool. Basically, to do SOAP, you need to set up things, and I've underlined the key aspects with the server setup. You need to run them, and then, of course, you need to clean up. You need to close things down in terms of database connections and all. So, we've done some simulations where, again, we could have literally tens to hundreds of thousands of people hitting this app, so we need to make sure that this app could handle not just that many people, but huge numbers of searches. So we ran simulations to make sure that this was clean and no memory leaks, and that's the case. It's quite clean. Good job, guys. So the app itself is actually available in the the App Store. We're actually selling it for $9.99. Nice little number, $9.99. Why, when I sell the database for $50,000 US? Well, because the reality is this is really more for an app to spread out outside of our more traditional customer base. It's more for academics and independents and researchers who don't have a spare $50,000 in their pocket. But the key is that it's or even the key is that the app itself is sitting in the store and it's just out there. And as I said, people were downloading this before I even the original one before I even knew it was there. So what's amazing from a business perspective is when you have hundreds of millions of devices, like the iPhone, and Apple sold 1 million of these iPads in the first month, expecting tens of millions in the next few months. It's just such a large space that you can start to get away with a smaller cost to an app in terms of a vendor's return on investment. So some of you as customers might ask, why are some vendors having such large expenses on the software technologies? Because it's expensive to build. But if you can amortize it, if you spread it over a large number of users, it changes the equation. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more apps in this space like that. And lastly, along those same lines, just wanted to mention the actual site Kinase Data. We actually have an academic version of the database that we just recently made available, and it's actually in the IJC format. And the site there is where you can go to get it. But again, I think sort of as a take-home message, and maybe I didn't really make this clear, when I first submitted the abstract, which you might have read, it said the soon-to-be-released iPad. Written the abstract, we hadn't even written the application yet. And I don't know how long ago that was, a few months ago. So the time it took to develop this application to now it's actually sitting in the store, so that includes even working through the Apple approval process, was probably under 3 months. So there you have it. Finally, I'm not Hungarian, except half of me being grandparents who were born here and all, but I don't speak it. I hope that says thank you. So, yes. Am I okay on time?